OPB Podcasts.
From the Gert Boyle studio, it's OPB Politics Now for Thursday, May 7th. It's election season. We focus a lot on statewide races and ballot measures on this podcast. But all politics are local, and this week we're focusing on races in governments across the Portland metro area. Washington, Clackamas counties, and the Metro Regional Council. These are some of the most populous and geographically diverse areas, crossing the infamous rural and urban divides and an expanse of political issues. There are a lot of open seats on the ballot, creating potential for a lot of leadership changes. At the same time, there are a lot of familiar faces in the running. Today, we're going to dig into these candidates and the stakes of these races. Welcome to the podcast. I'm OPB City Politics reporter Alex Zielinski.
I'm OPB's Suburban Communities reporter Holly Bartholomew.
Let's start with Clackamas County. Holly, that county includes the southern part of Portland, Milwaukee, Happy Valley, Estacada, Wilsonville, among many other communities, and 3 of the 5 county commission seats are up for grabs. Holly, can you give us kind of the big picture first? What are some of the top issues that concern this area? Anything that makes it unique? In your mind, what is this election about? What are kind of the main focuses? I realize I just asked you like 5 questions, but go with it.
Yeah, that's okay. I think the 2 things that pretty much all candidates have promised to prioritize, regardless of what side of the aisle they're on, are affordability and public safety. They've all used similar language to talk about housing affordability specifically, saying things like the county needs to cut the red tape or streamline permitting to make building new homes easier. And the hope here is that a faster permitting process will lead to more homes, and that bigger inventory will drive prices down. The other thing that a lot of the candidates have emphasized in their campaign materials is public safety. Several of the candidates have said things like they want to fully fund the sheriff's office, and what exactly they mean by that is not super clear. The sheriff's office has had some issues in the past year with management of funds, and that meant that some of the services that were promised in the county's public safety levy didn't get funded, but also historically there have been a number of unfilled positions within the office that have remained unfilled, and so some people have interpreted that as meaning the sheriff's office is not currently fully funded.
It sounds like a good talking point.
Sorry.
Did you have more?
I was just going to say, I think for the point is that a lot of these candidates want to ensure that the sheriff's office gets their money.
Sure.
And then as for issues that are unique to the county, I would note that several candidates, and predominantly the ones who are incumbents, are still touting their vocal opposition to highway tolling. Back when ODOT was planning to toll I-205, county leaders were very active in their opposition to that plan. And even though that plan is no longer on the table, they just still want voters to know that they are not on board with it coming back.
You mentioned incumbents in these races. I mean, that's a big piece of almost all of these seats have incumbents or people who've run in positions before. Each of these 3 races for Clackamas County Commission seats are pretty interesting, and they each have their own history. As a reminder, unlike some other governments, commissions are elected countywide in Clackamas, so they don't represent specific geographic regions. But anyways, let's start with one of the races that has kind of the weirdest backstory, the race for the seat currently held by Commissioner Diana Helm. So Helm was appointed last May after previous Commissioner Melissa Fireside resigned midterm. Can you remind us what happened there?
So Melissa Fireside won a seat on the commission in 2024, but as the election neared, it came out that she was under investigation for scamming an elderly friend of her mother's. She resigned from the commission when the charges dropped about 2 months after she took office. And then she was out on bail for a while, but the Oregon Department of Justice announced last fall that Fireside had fled the country with her 9-year-old son. We know that she used an Austrian passport to book a flight from Mexico to the Netherlands last fall, but as of right now, it's not really clear where she's at.
All right, a bit on the lam. So tell us a little bit about Helm, the person who currently has that seat, Diana Helm, and her backstory.
So Helm, she was the former mayor of Damascus, a town that was disincorporated a little while ago, and she applied to fill Fireside's seat. There was dozens of people who applied for that, and she ended up getting that role. And now she's up against 6 people who are relative newcomers. One of the challengers ran and lost in 2024, but other than that, there's not a ton of political experience behind these candidates. And these new candidates all come from kind of a mix of backgrounds. There's a banker, a rancher, a tax analyst, an environmental consultant, a steel company manager, and a carpenter/personal trainer.
Okay. And politically, are they kind of all across the board?
Yeah, they're kind of all across the board. Helm is an independent, and she's really the only one with any sort of like significant backing or endorsements, but she has it from both sides of the aisle. She has backing from 2 of her colleagues on the commission, Ben West, who's a Republican, and Martha Schrader, who is a Democrat, but she also has backing from the DA and the Police Officers Union. And then other than her, the only other candidate in the race that has any endorsement is R.W. Smith. He's the environmental consultant, and he has the endorsement of the county Democratic Party.
Okay. So let's pivot to another one of these seats. There's kind of this weird dynamic in another race where someone who Fireside beat in the past is hoping to reclaim office, but then there's also an incumbent in that office. It's complicated. It's a little dramatic. It's maybe fun, at least for politics nerds. Tell us a little bit about that race.
This one is interesting. There's 2 former commissioners who previously lost their seats are running against their former colleague on the commission. So here we have Paul Savas. He's the incumbent. He's been on the commission since 2011 and is now seeking his 5th term. And then there's Jim Bernard, who served 12 years on the commission until he lost his bid for re-election for the county chair in 2016. And then we have Mark Scholl, and he served on the commission between 2021 and 2024. And maybe you'll remember he faced scrutiny very early on in his term for bigoted remarks he made on social media that came to light. And as you mentioned, he's the one that lost re-election to Fireside 2 years ago. And then this race does also have 2 newcomers who have filed, but they don't seem to be actively campaigning.
Okay, so it seems more like a race between these 3.
For sure.
Like I said earlier, kind of the theme of these races seems to be that nearly everyone running has had this job in the past. A lot of the folks have been on the commission or have run for it before, maybe lost. In this 3rd race, another example of that, we have Commissioner Ben West, who you mentioned earlier. He's fighting to keep his position against another person who used to serve on the commission, and West had beat just 4 years ago. What should we know about this race?
Yeah, this is another interesting one, like you mentioned. When they faced off 4 years ago, West beat out the incumbent Sonia Fisher by less than 1%. So I think there's a good chance that this one will be really close again, which means it could go to a runoff in November. And that's actually something that could potentially happen for all of these races. If no candidate earns more than half the vote in May, it will advance to a November runoff.
Yeah, I was going to ask. It sounds like a lot of these are pretty close. Maybe not that first one, since it seemed like there was really just one main. Dana Helm is kind of leading, but does it seem like it could really be up in the air for all of them?
Yeah, I think there's at least a chance that all of these could go to a runoff. I think, like you mentioned, Helms is probably the best. She has the best chance of winning hers outright in May, but still, if she doesn't, with so many candidates, like she still has to secure 50% of the vote. And if she doesn't do that, there will be a runoff race in November.
Well, I've mentioned this a lot, but it is really interesting seeing so many former electeds who have lost their seats in the past on the commission come back to make this run at office again. Is this something that's unique to Clackamas? Has this happened before, and is it a pattern or a practice?
Yeah, it's happened before. We have definitely seen formerly ousted commissioners run again. The one that comes to mind for me is Tootie Smith. She served on the commission from 2013 to 2017, and then she lost her 2016 bid for re-election to Ken Humbertson, but then she ran for chair again in 2020 and won. And then in 2024, she lost her re-election bid for the chair to former Sheriff Craig Roberts, who is now still the chair.
Okay, yeah. So quick, a lot of turnover, a lot of cycles. So let's move our lens to the west. Washington County, which is home to Hillsborough, Beaverton, North Plains, Swelton, a lot of other cities, a lot of farmland. And there are 2 commission seats on the ballot, along with the county chair seat up for grabs. Another busy race for you to follow, or races for you to follow. I want to ask you, I want to start with kind of the same question I had for Clackamas. What makes Washington County unique? What are the main issues rising to the top this election season? What are people talking about?
Yeah, I think the 2 biggest issues in these races are how the county stands up to increased federal immigration enforcement, and then land use and kind of the push and pull between growth and development in the tech industry and protections of rural and agricultural space. As listeners are probably aware, Washington County was one of the areas hardest hit by the onslaught of immigration enforcement last year. And the county ended up declaring a state of emergency and set aside $200,000 for community organizations that can help immigrant families. But some of the candidates in these races, including Commissioner Nafisa Faye, who is running for chair, and some of the other more progressive candidates want the county to do more. At the time they declared that state of emergency, Faye wanted the county to also suspend rental evictions and utility shutoffs. And then some of the other candidates feel the county should find ways to hold federal agents accountable when they violate people's rights. And then on the other side, some are kind of just feel that the county's hands are tied and that federal and state law limit them from stepping in to the realm of immigration enforcement, which is typically a federal issue. And then the other issue is this kind of battle between the tech industry and agriculture. Washington County is the Silicon Forest for a reason. Tech has been a huge driver of Oregon's economy for a long time, and as we kind of enter this lull in the economy, we're seeing this push for more growth in tech, and specifically in Washington County. But there's a fear that more tech development and data centers and all of that will end up taking land and water and resources from Washington County's farms, which have been a huge part of the county since long before that tech explosion.
You mentioned Nafisa Faye. I think we should get into these specific races. And the biggest race on the commission is unquestionably for the county chair, which Nafisa Faye and others are running for. That office has been held by Catherine Harrington for 8 years, which have been a little rocky for her. Two current county commissioners are vying for her seat, among a few others. Can you tell us a little bit about the race and the politics of the candidates?
Yeah. So in this race, we have Commissioners Nafisa Faye, like you mentioned, and then Pam Treese, and they're battling it out against Jenny Camprath, who is a newcomer to the race. Faye has been on the commission since her election in 2020, when she actually became the first Black person and first Muslim ever elected to the commission. And then Treese has been on the commission since her election in 2018. Faye and Treese are both Democrats, but I would say Faye is definitely the more progressive of the two. And then Camprath is on the other side of the aisle. She's actually a delegate and fundraising chair for the County Republican Party.
And if Faye loses this race, she will still be a county commissioner, right? She'll still have her seat. That's not the same for Treese. If she loses, she won't, because her office is up for election. And she currently represents District 2. Let's talk about that race. Unlike Clackamas County, Washington County commissioners represent geographic districts, and District 2 includes North Beaverton, Cedar Mill, Raleigh Hills, a few other small communities. Holly, who is hoping to replace Treese?
We have 3 candidates here: Blaine Soleimani Pearson, Felicita Monteblanco, and Stephen Kirkpatrick. Soleimani Pearson is currently a domestic violence prosecutor with the Multnomah County DA's office. Monteblanco is a former director with the Tualatin Hills Parks and Recreation District, and Kirkpatrick is a retired banker. Soleimani and Pearson seem to kind of be the leaders for this race. They're the only 2 with notable endorsements. The Oregon Working Families Party, Building Power for Communities of Color, and 6 Democratic state legislators have endorsed Soleimani Pearson. And then Monteblanco has backing from Representatives Suzanne Bonamici and Andrea Salinas and a few of the current county commissioners. But the only endorsement I could find for Kirkpatrick was from the Washington County Republican Party.
Okay, interesting. It sounds like that one might go to a runoff in November as well.
I think
all
there's
of
a good
these
chance.
You're just going to continue writing about these folks. Okay, let's hop to the last race in Washington County for the largest district, District 4. That seat's also open. It encompasses Hillsborough, Forest Grove, and a large amount of agricultural land. The incumbent, Jerry Wiley, is stepping down after 3 terms. And it's a pretty packed race, right? Who's running to succeed him, and what are the dynamics of this race?
This race is a crowded one. There are 6 candidates. 3 are current or former members of the Hillsborough City Councilor. We have former Mayor Steve Calloway, former City Councilor Anthony Martin, and then current City Councilor Kipperlyn Sinclair. And then outside of the Hillsborough City Council, we have Kimberly Culbertson. She's a board member for Habitat for Humanity. And then there's Ayla Hoffler, who is a former nurse. And then last we have Paul Schaefer, who is currently a land use planner for the county.
That's a lot of people. That's a really interesting district because so much, it's huge. So much of it is rural land. Are these issues around kind of land use and kind of the balance between ag and industry, is that coming up a lot in this race? Or do you think it will be kind of a central piece of it?
It's definitely a piece of it. Like you mentioned, District 4 is the most rural area. Mm-hmm. It encompasses a lot of Washington County's farmland. And so we are seeing some of these candidates talk about these issues that we've seen come up, like for instance, in our most recent legislative session of like, are we going to give data centers these tax breaks? And, what will that mean for our agricultural land? Kind
of finding the balance there. These issues around growth and affordability that you've mentioned, these are all keywords also popping up in the Metro Council government races too. And I've been following some of those, like the race for District 4 that overlaps with Washington County. A reminder for our listeners that Metro oversees issues that cross county and city boundaries, like land use, transportation, rural or natural areas, all these different things. And the 2 candidates in that District 4 race, Miles Palacios and Alex Fan, they are both big on balancing the region's need to spur the economy, create more jobs, but also preserving wild areas and ag. It seems really similar to what you're hearing. It's the same focus for the outgoing Metro District 4 Councilor Juan Carlos Gonzalez, and he is running for Metro president. His competitors haven't raised that much money or collected many endorsements, so it's almost all but certain that he has this race in the bag. Anyways, I think it's fair to say managing growth in the western reaches of the metro area will remain a big focus in years to come. I think we should leave it there for today. Of course, we'll be following these races closely on election night and in November. If any or all head into a runoff. Holly, thank you so much for your reporting, and thank you for joining me today.
Thanks, Alex.
This week's episode of OPB Politics Now was recorded in the Gert Boyle studio. It was produced by Andrew Thien, and our audio engineer is Nalene Silva. Our music comes from Audio Network. We'll be back next week with more political news from across the Pacific Northwest. Until then, you can find all of OPB's reporting at opb.org. Thanks for your support, and thanks for listening.